my name is Putri. Okay, first, I would like to explain what is perception is. Do you know what is perception is? Okay, if you don't know, I would like to explain to you guys. Okay, perception is a process by which individuals organize and interpret their sensory information in order to give meaning to their environment. It also means a process of receiving information about and making sense of the around us. Perception is we don't see things as they are, but we see things as we are. There are various ways people interpret things in outside of world and how they act on it. Do you know perception is important in life? And why it's important? It is important because people's behavior is based on their perception of what reality is and not on reality itself. Human minds assembles and organize and categorize information. Sometimes, different individuals may perceive the same thing differently. Differences may arise due to some factor associated with the perceiver, situations, or target. But what does this have to do with an organization? Well, there are various ways that a person can perceive a situation in the work environment that can lead to a problem. For example, that I think the factor that affect perception is stereotype. Okay, now I would like to explain what is stereotype is. Stereotype is a tendency to assign to someone solely on the basis of a category of people to which that persons belong. Stereotype is a generalization about the groups of people. When we judge someone on the basis of our perception to the group to which he or she belongs, we are using the shortcut called stereotyping. Stereotype can be accurate, and when they are accurate, they can be useful perceptual guidelines. However, most of the time, stereotypes are inaccurate. Stereotypes reduce information about other people to a workable level, and they are efficient of compiling and using information. It is means of simplifying a complex world, and it permits us to maintain consistency. It is less difficult to deal with an unmanageable number of stimuli if we use stereotypes. There are some advantages of stereotype. The advantage that I would like to share with you is it enables we to respond rapidly to situation because we may have had a similar experience before. And now I would like to explain about the disadvantages of the stereotype. The advantages is it makes us ignore differences between individuals. Therefore, we think about people that might not be true. Stereotype can lead into inaccuracy and negative consequences. Stereotype is a four-step process. The first one is categorizing people into groups according to various criteria such as age, gender, race, occupation, and religion. Second one is inferring that all people within a particular category possess the same traits. And the third one is forming expectation for others. And the last one is interpreting their behavior according to our stereotype.
The second effect that leads to the perception is halo effect. The halo effect is a type of cognitive bias in which our overall impression of a person influences how we feel and think about his or her character. Essentially, your overall impression of a person such he is nice impacts your evaluation of that person's specific traits such he is also smart. One great example of the halo effect in action is our overall impressions of celebrities. Since we perceive them as attractive, successful, and also often likable, we also tend to see them as intelligent, kind, and funny. So, what is the halo effect? What is the halo effect? Means it is refers to the bias whereby the perception of a positive trait in a person or product positively influences further judgments about traits of the person or product by the same manufacturer. One of the more common halo effect is the judgment that a good-looking person is intelligent and amiable. The halo effect also can be defined as a tendency to use global evaluation to make judgments about specific traits. In other words, we use a global characteristics to determine specific personality traits. We attribute personality qualities to people we have only seen, even though we have never met them, and the qualities have nothing to do with their looks. This phenomenon happens unconsciously. We are unaware of the bias we develop simply because of the person's attractiveness. In other words, it also known as the physical attractiveness stereotype, and the what is beautiful is good principle. That halo effect at the most specific level refers to the habitual tendency of people to rate attractive individuals more favorably for their personality traits or characteristics than those who are less attractive. Halo effect is also used in a more general sense to describe the global impact of likable personality or some specific desirable trait in creating biased judgment of the target person on any dimensions. Thus, feelings generally overcome cognition when we appraise others. The halo effect is also a term used in human resources recruitment. While interviewing a person, you might be influenced by one of their attributes and ignore their other weaknesses. As we know, different people has a different perception, so there are several people who are giving a meaning of halo effect from their perspective. Okay, according to the L. Thorndike, it was the first to support the halo effect with empirical research in a psychology study published in 1920. Thorndike asked commanding officers to rate their soldiers. Thorndike found high cross-correlation between all positive and all negative traits. People seem not to think of others individually in mixed terms. Instead, we seem to see each person as roughly good or roughly bad across all categories of measurements. While a study by Solomon Asch suggests that attractiveness is a central trait, so we presume all the other traits of an attractive person are just as attractive and sought after. Then the halo effect is also involved in Harold Kelly's implicit personality theory, which they say where the first traits we recognize in other people then influence the interpretations and perception of later ones. Attractive people are often judged as having a more desirable personality and more skills than someone of average appearance. Celebrities are used to endorse products that they have advertised in evaluating. So the halo effect works both in positive and negative direction. If you like one aspect of something, you will have a positive predisposition toward everything about it. Okay, if you dislike one aspect of something, you will have a negative predisposition toward everything about it. So other than that, there is also a reverse halo effect whereby perception of negative or undesirable traits in individuals, brains, or other things influence further negative judgment about the traits of the individual brain, and etc. If a person looks evil or looks guilty, you may judge anything he says or does with suspicions. Eventually, you may feel confident that you have confirmed your first impression with solid evidence, when in fact your evidence is completely tainted and conditioned by your first impression. The hope that the halo effect will influence a judge or jury is one reason some criminal lawyers might like their clients to be clean shaven and dressed neatly when they appear at trial. Why does the halo effect exist? The halo effect allows us to snap judgment because we only have to consider one aspect of a person or design in order to know about other aspects. In the age of cave people, there might even have been some truth to this snap judgment. To grow tall, a person would have had to eat lots of meat and was therefore probably a good hunter that was worth listening to, and a good-looking person would have avoided disfigurement from lost battles, animals bites, and nasty diseases, which again would make them role models for other proto-humans. Those early humans who could make fast decisions were more likely to survive become our ancestors than anybody who had to ponder all problems for hours. Thus, we have inherited a tendency to make a fast judgment based on generalizing from a small amount of data. So part of that, every perception possesses good and bad outcomes. So halo effect also come out with pros and cons, where if you're physically attractive, people tend to like you more likely to get a job, lots of friends, and receive lots of attention. Mental shortcut to help make decisions about people. while the cons is being judged on your costume and looks when it doesn't define who you are. Okay, then how the halo effect work in the real world? As you read, as you know, the halo effect can influence to how teachers treat students, but it also can impact how students perceive teachers. In one study, researchers found that when an instructor was viewed as warm and friendly, students also rate him as more attractive, appealing, and likable. Marketers take advantage of the halo effect to sell products and services. When a celebrity spokesperson endorses a particular item, our positive evaluation of the individuals can spread to our perception of the product itself. Then job applicant also are likely to feel the impact of the halo effect. If a prospective employer views the applicant as attractive or likable, they are more likely to also rate the individual as intelligent, competent, and qualified. Okay, so the next time you're trying to evaluate another person, whether it is deciding which political candidate to vote for or which movie to see on a Friday night, consider how your overall impression of an individual might influence your version of other characteristics. So being aware of the halo effect, however, does not make it easy to avoid its influence on our perception and decision. So it's important to keep the halo effect in mind as you are planning sites, designing flows, defining key performance indicators, and measuring your site because drop off of any one point in your users' experience may indicate a poor first impression via design, content, site performance, and so on. Additionally, it's important to supplement quantitative data sources with qualitative methods such as usability testing.
Okay, now we proceed to the next part. One of the factors that affect the perception is the attribution. So, what are the attribution? Attribution is a process by which individuals assign causes to the behavior. How do we attach meaning to others' behavior is called attribution. It simply means about how people explain the things. It refers to the way people try to understand the behavior of others and interpret events around them. For example, is someone angry because they are bad tempered or because something bad happened to him or her? Attribution is concerned with how individuals interpret events and how this relate to their thinking and behavior. Attribution assumes that people try to determine why people do what they do. A person seeking to understand why another person did something may attribute one or more causes to that behavior. Attribution can be defined as a psychological process of an individual to explain cause and behavior. It simply means a theory on how people explain things and attempt to explain the causes of the behavior. There are two types of attribution that need to be considered when we attribute a behavior. It is the internal cause and the external cause. The first one is internal attribution. It is the perception that a person is behaving in a certain way because something about the person such as attitude, character, or personality. It is the process of assigning the cause of behavior to some internal characteristic rather than outside force. When we explain the behavior of others, we look for enduring internal attributions such as personality traits. For example, we attribute the behavior of a person to their personality, motive, or belief. It is the factor that is attributed to the person being observed, and it usually controllable. As illustration, there is one student that are always score high marks in class. We may perceive the reason for the student to score high marks was because of her dedication, hard work, and skills of the student. The second one is external attribution. The inference that a person is behaving in a certain way because of something about situation he or she is in. It is the process of assigning the cause of behavior to some situation or event outside a person's control rather than to some internal characteristic. When we try
To explain our own behavior, we tend to make external attributions such as situational or environment features. It is related to the outside factors of a person being observed and it often uncontrollable such as luck. As example, let's say there is also one student that are always score high marks for every subject in class. We may believe and perceive that the student achieved the high marks is because the teacher in that class is her or his own parents. We have attribute an external cause as the reason of the achievement that is gained by the student. Okay, there are three stages process, analyze, and attribution. Firstly, behavior must be observed or perceived. Secondly, behavior must be determined to be intentional. Thirdly, behavior attribute to internal or external cause. Attribution are classified along three causal dimensions. It has locus of control, which are internal versus external. The stability, which mean the causes change over time or not, and controllability, controllable such as skill versus uncontrollable such as luck. We all we all have a need to explain the world, both to ourselves and to other people or people too, attributing cause to the event around us. This gives us a greater sense of control. When explaining behavior, it can affect the standing of people within a group, especially ourselves.
Hi, I'm Erna. Okay, now I want to explain about the factor that influence the perception. Okay, for the selective perception is the process of filter the information that received by our sense. That means the selective perception comes from the information that get through our sense and stimulation. For example, from feeling, from hearing, from seeing, from smelling, and from tasting. Okay, for the reception of the raw sensory information to the various sense organs is influenced by the belief of the person through the experience by the person and knowledge and the ability by the person. Okay, selective perception also means that the act of focusing on a particular object for a period of time in the environment while ignoring irrelevant information also occurring. There are two psychological principles. That first is relevancy. That means what the perception of human was relevant and will come up with the fact information. For the second principle is figure and ground principle. That means the perception will base on significant and also can be insignificant information. For example of insignificant information is gossip. There are two factors that influence selective perception. The first is characteristic of the object. This means there's something that stand out more than other. For example, the colors of traffic light. The colors of traffic light will make attention to all the driver whether to stop or continue the way. For example, if the colors of traffic light is red, the driver will stop. And when the color of traffic light is green, they will continue the way. Okay, the second factor of selective perception is the characteristic of the perceiver. This means when the information is received through the sense or emotional marker, our brain quickly judge and unconsciously assess whether it is relevant or irrelevant to us. And the emotional markers such as worry, anger, or happiness will attach to the relevant information based on the evaluation of their thinking, of the human thinking.